Wake up with purpose. Conquer each day like it's your last look. Time is finite. You don't know how much of it you have. Most people live as if they're going to be here forever. They aren't. You aren't. So stop wasting time. Every morning you wake up, you're essentially getting another shot at building something meaningful. That's not something to take lightly. That's a high leverage opportunity. You want to wake up and know exactly why you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you're just burning energy on autopilot. If you don't set a direction, you'll drift. And drift is the enemy of momentum. What matters most? Progress, not perfection. Progress. Are you closer today than you were yesterday to solving something that actually matters? That's the question you should be asking. Not whether you're comfortable, not whether people approve, but whether you're building something that moves the needle. You don't need more motivation. You need clarity. You need urgency. If you knew you only had 24 hours left, what would you stop doing immediately? What would you double down on? That's where your focus should be every single day. Some people say, take it slow. No, that's the wrong game. Take it seriously. Treat every day like it's your last, not because you're afraid of dying, but because you're committed to living deliberately. Sleep faster, think deeper, move faster. Iterate constantly. Every problem is solvable with enough focus and execution, but that starts with a choice. Wake up, not just physically, but mentally. Be present, be driven. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. It doesn't exist. The conditions will never be ideal. Build anyway. Every second you waste is someone else's breakthrough. So wake up with purpose. Conquer each day like it's your last, because one day it will be, and by then it'll be too late to change the outcome. Start now, build something that matters, and don't stop until it's real. Time is fine. I tact with urgency. Most people live under the illusion that they have time, that there's always tomorrow, next week, next year. They treat their days like cheap currency, spending hours on distractions, on things that don't compound, on noise. But the truth is, time is the one resource you can't negotiate with. You can't pause it. You can't reverse it. You can't buy more of it, no matter how much money, influence, or intellect you have. Once it's gone, and that makes it the most valuable asset you have. Yet paradoxically, it's the one asset most people squander every single day. When you truly internalize that time is finite, everything changes. It forces you to stop tolerating mediocrity in yourself and in others. It forces a level of precision in how you choose what to work on, who to work with, and how fast you move. It shifts your mindset from passive to active, from reactive to proactive. You stop asking, can this wait? And start asking, what happens if I don't do this now? That shift is everything. The clock is always ticking, and every delay, every excuse, every moment of hesitation is momentum lost. Acting with urgency doesn't mean rushing. It doesn't mean panicking or cutting corners. Urgency is a mindset. It's the refusal to be complacent. It's the discipline of working on the right things right now, because you recognize that the window for action is always closing. You can't afford to drift. You can't afford to just see what happens. That kind of thinking is how people get stuck in jobs they don't care about, relationships that drain them, projects that never ship. They wait, they stall, they overthink, and then they look back and realize a decade vanished and they never actually built anything meaningful. There's an opportunity cost to everything you do, and also to everything you don't do. Most people think the cost is only associated with doing something inefficient or ineffective. But the far greater cost is the things you didn't start, the risks you didn't take, the ideas you didn't execute. People love to talk about regret in terms of failure, but real regret comes from inertia, from knowing you could have done more, pushed harder, moved faster, but didn't. Not because you weren't capable, but because you didn't feel the pressure of time. Because you let the days slide by like they were infinite. There's no countdown on your phone, no warning siren that tells you when you're out of chances. That's what makes urgency so difficult to master. It requires self-generated pressure. No one else is going to demand it of you, not consistently. You have to create it yourself. You have to wake up and decide to move faster. You have to choose to prioritize results over comfort. That doesn't come naturally. It's a discipline, a daily recalibration of your priorities and your energy. Start tracking how you spend your hours, not in theory, in practice. Break your day into segments and audit it. How much of it is going to things that move the needle? How much of it is just keeping the engine warm? You'll find that urgency isn't just about working more hours. It's about using the hours you already have with ruthless intention. High performers don't have more time than you. They use theirs differently. They don't treat Tuesday like some disposable test run. They execute relentlessly day after day because they understand the weight of time. They don't wait to feel ready. They move and they learn in motion. You don't need to work 18-hour days to feel urgency. You need to reduce drag, cut out the waste, kill the things that steal your focus without adding value. Look at your calendar, look at your task list. How much of it is busy work masquerading as progress? How many meetings should have been an email, or better yet, nothing at all? People love to look productive. They love to feel like they're in motion. But urgency isn't about motion. It's about direction and speed. You can be sprinting in circles and still going nowhere. Urgency means you know where you're headed and you're willing to make trade-offs to get there faster. Every breakthrough happens on a clock. Innovation isn't just about having good ideas. It's about executing them before someone else does, before the market changes, before the moment passes. The window is never open forever. If you think you can just wait until you're ready, you've already lost. Urgency means understanding the life cycle of opportunity. It means recognizing that right now is the best time you're going to get. Not next year, not when the economy settles, not when you've read 5 more books. Right now. People often confuse patience with procrastination. They say they're being methodical, that they're preparing. In reality, they're hiding. They're afraid to ship, afraid to test, afraid to fail in public. So they stall. They do one more round of revisions, one more iteration. They tinker endlessly, thinking they're perfecting the product, when really they're just avoiding the discomfort of launching. Urgency cuts through that. Urgency says, launch fast, learn faster, get data, get feedback, evolve in real time. That's how things scale. That's how disruption happens. This isn't about glorifying burnout. It's about eliminating drag and acting like time matters because it does. It's about choosing intensity over indecision. It's about realizing that you are never going to get this exact day again. You'll never be this age again. You'll never have this particular combination of insight, energy, and opportunity again. So the question becomes, what are you doing with it? How are you using the hours you've been given today to push something forward that actually matters? Momentum is fragile. You can build it or you can break it, and once it's lost, it's hard to recover. That's why urgency matters, because every day you delay the work, the mission, the build, you're not just losing time. You're losing potential energy, you're giving away compounding progress, and that adds up. One day missed turns into a week turns into a month, and before long, what could have been a breakthrough has become a missed opportunity you'll never get back. Clarity beats motivation. Know your why. Motivation is unreliable. It fluctuates. One day you feel inspired, the next you're drained. It's emotional, and emotions are volatile. If your ability to act is tied to how you feel, you're building on an unstable foundation. That's why clarity is the more powerful engine. Clarity doesn't depend on mood, weather, praise, or momentum. It's internal alignment. It's knowing exactly why you're doing what you're doing, and using that reason as the anchor that holds when everything else is in flux. When people rely on motivation, they start strong and fade fast. They chase spikes of energy. They look for the next video, the next quote, the next story to light a temporary fire, and when the feeling fades, as it always does, they stop. That's the pattern: high energy, short burst, dead stop, over and over. It's unsustainable. Clarity cuts through that. With clarity, you don't need to feel fired up to take action. You take action because you're locked in on a mission that matters. You don't wake up asking what you feel like doing. You wake up already knowing what needs to be done. Clarity turns work into purpose. It transforms repetition into progress. It gives meaning to discomfort. Because once you know your why, you can tolerate almost any how. You can grind through the hard parts because you're not just pushing pixels or hitting targets. You're building something that aligns with your core intent. You're not trying to win the day. You're trying to win the long game, and the long game requires focus. Distractions become easier to ignore when the path is clear. You're not pulled in every direction because you've already chosen yours. Knowing your why isn't a feel good exercise, it's a strategic necessity. If you're not anchored, you'll get swept by other people's agendas, by trends, by expectations, by noise. You'll chase things that look valuable on the surface but are hollow underneath. You'll start projects that have no weight, no traction, and wonder why you're exhausted and still stuck. But if you know your why, you can filter decisions at scale. You can say no more decisively. You can set priorities without hesitation. You don't waste cycles chasing applause. You chase progress. People assume clarity is something you either have or you don't. It's not. It's built. It's earned through reflection, experimentation, friction. You have to ask hard questions. You have to look at what you've been doing and ask, does this even matter to me? Is this building towards something I actually want to create? Or am I just checking boxes because I'm supposed to? That's uncomfortable. Most avoid it, but without that process, you're just reacting. You're mimicking effort. Clarity is what separates shallow effort from focused execution. When you know your why, your decisions gain speed. You don't waste time second, guessing every move. You move fast because your direction is already set. The question isn't whether to do it, it's how to do it best. That velocity compounds, and the world responds to people who move with purpose. Investors, customers, teammates, they don't just want people who can talk the talk. They want people who know exactly what problem they're solving and why it matters. Clarity signals intent. It signals credibility. It's a magnet for resources and alignment. Most people don't burn out from overwork. They burn out from misalignment, from working hard on things they don't believe in, from chasing goals that aren't theirs, from climbing ladders that are leaning against the wrong wall. That's a clarity problem, not a workload problem. When you're building towards something that resonates deeply, you don't drain as quickly. You're not fighting yourself. Your output isn't powered by force. It's powered by focus. There's a difference. In a world full of noise, clarity is leverage. The clearer you are, the less energy you waste explaining yourself. The less you second guess your own actions, the more direct your communication becomes. You stop using vague words. You stop saying maybe someday or I'll try. You make firm statements. You set timelines. You commit. And when you commit from a place of clarity, execution follows. A lack of clarity is what keeps people spinning in loops. They jump from project to project. They overthink. They consume endlessly. They live in draft mode, waiting, preparing, thinking, but not doing, not shipping, not building. They confuse activity with progress because they don't know what they're really trying to achieve. That's the danger of operating without a why. You stay busy, but you don't move forward. Finding your why is not about some grand purpose that has to change the world. It's about identifying the deeper intent behind your work. What are you trying to build, and why does it matter? What happens if you don't do it? Who suffers? What opportunity disappears? Clarity becomes sharper when it's attached to consequences. It's not just about what you want, it's about what's at stake. That's what fuels consistency. When you operate with clarity, you stop needing external validation. You're not driven by likes, metrics, or applause. You measure success by how aligned your daily actions are with your larger intent. That's internal accountability. It's stronger than external pressure. It keeps you grounded when things get chaotic. It keeps you moving when things get quiet. Clarity keeps you focused even when the payoff is far down the road. You can tolerate the lag because you know what you're building toward. Clarity is also a filter for your inputs. You become more selective about what you consume, who you listen to, and where you spend your attention. Not every opinion matters. Not every trend is worth chasing. You stop reacting to everything around you and start curating what serves your vision. That protects your energy. That enhances your signal. And in a world obsessed with noise, signal is power. Without clarity, everything feels urgent. Everything feels important. You're constantly switching lanes, shifting gears, chasing momentum. It's chaotic. But with clarity, you can distinguish what's essential from what's noise. You know what to ignore. You know when to push and when to pause. You can say no without guilt because you're saying yes to something bigger. That's not arrogance. That's precision. And precision is what separates high-impact work from wasted effort. Most people want to feel motivated before they act. That's the wrong loop. Action should follow clarity, not emotion. Get clear on what you're trying to build, and the work will follow. Not because it's easy, but because it's anchored, because it means something, because the alternative, drifting, stalling, waiting, is no longer acceptable. Progress over perfection. Build relentlessly. Perfection is a trap. It's the illusion that there's some ideal version of your work, your idea, or yourself that must exist before it can be shared, tested, or deployed. It's a mental cage disguised as a standard. People who chase perfection often think they're aiming high, but in reality, they're delaying impact. They're stuck refining instead of shipping, polishing instead of launching. Perfection feels like excellence, but it's just inertia in disguise. It's a form of procrastination dressed up as discipline. Progress is measurable, tangible, it compounds. Every piece of code written, every design iteration shipped, every test run, every idea launched before it felt ready, those are units of momentum. And momentum is what drives actual outcomes. Waiting for perfect conditions kills more ideas than failure ever will. The market doesn't reward potential, it rewards execution. Getting something out there, even if it's flawed, opens the door to feedback, learning, and evolution. That's how systems improve. That's how teams scale. Not by aiming for flawless on the first try, but by improving through motion. You don't build great things by theorizing. You build them by doing. You learn faster by launching version 1 than by endlessly tweaking version 0. 9. Perfectionists hate that idea because it feels like compromise. But progress isn't compromise. It's strategy. It's understanding that iteration outpaces speculation, that real-world data is more valuable than internal assumptions, that user feedback is more revealing than personal judgment. You get better not by thinking, but by building. The people who achieve the most don't wait to be certain. They act, observe, and adapt. They put things in motion knowing they'll refine as they go. They don't pretend to have the full blueprint. They start with what they have, build what they can, and improve what they learn. That's the build loop. Create, release, measure, refine, repeat, and repeat again. It's not glamorous, but it works. Every breakthrough is the result of 100 versions that came before it, most of them imperfect, most of them invisible to the public eye, but all of them necessary. Perfection creates fragility. When you've poured time into making something perfect, you become emotionally attached to the outcome. That makes you resistant to feedback, defensive when flaws are found, afraid to pivot when something isn't working. Progress-oriented builders don't have that problem. They know each version is temporary. Each release is a stepping stone. That mindset allows them to move faster, adjust faster, recover faster. Perfection makes your work brittle. Progress makes it flexible, and flexibility is survival. There's a reason minimum viable products exist, not because they're cheap, but because they force clarity. What's essential? What actually matters to the user? What delivers value today, not 6 months from now? You can't know those things until something is live, until real people interact with it, until friction shows up. No amount of whiteboarding or planning will give you the same insight as shipping and watching what breaks. You don't need more polish, you need more data, and data comes from progress. Progress also trains resilience. Every time you ship something that's not perfect, you become more comfortable with discomfort. You stop tying your identity to flawless output. You stop fearing criticism. You start to embrace feedback loops as a core part of the process. That's how you build confidence, not through theory, but through repeated exposure to imperfection, through learning that survival doesn't require flawless work. It requires working work, and that's what progress gives you. The mindset of perfection makes you slow. It introduces latency between thought and action. You hesitate, you second, guess, you revise in circles. Progress breaks that loop. It encourages fast decisions, small bets, controlled experiments. It doesn't mean being reckless, it means being iterative. Test assumptions quickly, ship updates frequently. Don't aim for complete solutions, aim for functional ones that can evolve. That speed compounds. Each iteration teaches you something new. Each release builds on the last, and before long, what started as a rough sketch turns into a real, functioning system. Progress also forces prioritization. When you stop trying to make everything flawless, you start identifying what actually matters. You stop polishing the edges of things nobody uses. You focus on core functionality, on solving real problems, on getting things into the hands of people who need them. Perfection tells you to make everything beautiful. Progress asks what delivers value. There's a huge difference. One is about control, the other is about impact, and impact is what you're here for. Perfectionism is often rooted in fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of being exposed as less capable than you want people to believe. Progress is the opposite. It's rooted in humility. It accepts that version 1 will be flawed, that iteration is required, that growth is non-linear and sometimes ugly, but it moves anyway. It doesn't wait for permission or guarantees. It builds because building is the only way forward. You can always optimize later. What you can't do is recover the time you spent waiting for perfect conditions. You can't reclaim the lost opportunity, the missed market window, the users who moved on. The cost of perfection is often invisible, but it's real. It's measured in delays, in lost momentum, in dead projects that never made it past prototype because someone was still tweaking the font. Meanwhile, someone else launched something rough, learned from it, and took the lead. Progress isn't about lowering standards. It's about elevating the standard of iteration. It's about learning through release instead of speculation. It's about honoring velocity without sacrificing vision. It's about recognizing that nothing great is great on version 1, but nothing ever becomes great unless you start. You can't refine what doesn't exist. You can't improve something that never shipped. You don't need a perfect idea. You need a working prototype. You don't need a perfect product. You need a usable one. You don't need a perfect plan. You need momentum. Ship fast, ship ugly, learn faster. Build again, that's the loop, that's the mindset. It's not romantic, but it works. Perfection makes you a theorist. Progress makes you a builder. Builders win. Builders create leverage. Builders change industries. Not because their first versions are beautiful, but because they're relentless in the pursuit of better. Because they never let perfect get in the way of done. Because they understand that forward is the only direction that compounds. Treat each day like it's your last. Execute with intent. Most people walk through their days with passive awareness. They wake up, go through routines, complete tasks, and react to demands. They treat time like it's renewable, like they can waste today and make up for it tomorrow. But time doesn't work that way. It moves in one direction and it moves fast. The days you waste aren't coming back. The opportunities you delay don't wait around. The person you could have become by showing up with full intention doesn't emerge through autopilot. You have to show up deliberately with urgency, and with a deep understanding that each day is a one-time opportunity to move something forward, thinking of each day as your last isn't about fear or morbidity. It's a mental filter to separate what matters from what doesn't. If today was all you had left, what would you actually prioritize? What would you stop tolerating? Who would you call? What would you build? Where would you focus your time, your energy, your attention? This frame eliminates fluff. It removes indecision. It burns through hesitation. When you internalize the reality that you don't control how many days you get, you start using the ones you have with precision. Intent is about direction. It means knowing what you're trying to achieve before the day even begins. It means deciding what outcomes matter most and acting in service of those outcomes regardless of obstacles. When you work with intent, you're not just filling hours. You're moving towards something. You're not just being busy. You're building. You're not just showing up. You're applying force in a focused direction. Intent gives every action weight. It forces you to question distractions. It makes you aware of where your energy is being siphoned and what trade-offs you're accepting. People lose entire months in a fog of low-leverage activity. Meetings that go nowhere. Conversations that solve nothing. Content consumption with no output. Tasks that don't matter but feel urgent. If you treated each day like your last, none of those things would survive the filter. You'd make hard cuts. You'd simplify. You'd move with clarity and fire. That's not intensity for the sake of it. That's alignment. Alignment between what you value and how you act. Between what you say matters and what your calendar reflects. Without that alignment, time leaks out through the cracks, and you don't realize it's gone until it's too late to recover. Intentional execution requires discipline. It's easy to get pulled off course by external noise. Notifications, updates, opinions, emergencies. Most of it is someone else's agenda. If you don't define your own, the world will fill the vacuum. Intent means defending your priorities. It means creating space for deep work, not just reacting to surface-level triggers. It means making deliberate choices about when to say yes, when to say no, and when to ignore everything but the thing right in front of you that actually moves the needle. Treating each day like it's your last doesn't mean you rush. It doesn't mean you skip quality or chase instant results. It means you eliminate delay. You stop pretending there will always be more time, more chances, more blank slates. You act now, not later. You follow through on the ideas that matter, even when they're uncomfortable. You say what needs to be said. You make decisions faster. You remove friction between intention and execution. Most of the barriers people face aren't external. They're internal: doubt, fear, resistance, distraction. These things slow execution far more than actual constraints. When you adopt a mindset of finality, those internal blocks lose their grip. If today were your last chance to create, you wouldn't care about being judged. You wouldn't wait to feel inspired. You wouldn't ask for permission. You'd act because hesitation would cost too much. That's what execution with intent looks like. Relentless forward motion powered by clarity, not emotion. There's a precision that comes with urgency. You become more selective. You learn to distinguish what's noise and what's signal. You stop measuring your day by how much you did and start measuring it by what actually moved. What got built, what advanced your mission, what conversation changed something, what challenge was solved. You start noticing when you're pretending to be productive and when you're actually executing. That shift is subtle but transformative. It turns effort into results. It turns hours into traction. Intent also impacts how you work with others. If you approach every interaction like it might be your last chance to connect or to make something happen, your conversations sharpen. You stop wasting words. You stop defaulting to surface-level discussion. You ask better questions. You listen harder. You push for resolution instead of dragging things out. You show up fully because you understand time is finite for everyone, not just for you. That respect for time scales into teams, into culture, into output. Working with intent doesn't mean you never rest. It means your rest is chosen, not accidental. It's scheduled recovery, not burnout. It's fuel, not escape. People confuse constant motion with productivity, but motion without intention is just noise. Real execution requires intensity followed by reset. That rhythm allows you to sustain progress. But the key is that both action and rest are deliberate. You're not drifting into either. You're choosing them based on what your mission demands. Intent also means being brutally honest with yourself. Are you using your time in a way that matches your stated goals? Are you spending your best energy on your highest leverage tasks, or are you stuck in maintenance mode, checking boxes, reacting to what's in front of you just to keep up? Treating today like it's your last day forces you to evaluate. The gap between what you say matters and what you're actually doing. That kind of self-audit is uncomfortable but necessary. It reveals the friction points, it shows you where you're leaking focus, and it gives you a chance to recalibrate before more days slip away unnoticed. Execution with intent doesn't require brilliance. It requires courage, courage to act without complete certainty, courage to prioritize when everything feels important. Courage to stay the course when the payoff isn't immediate. Most people wait for clarity to show up before they act, but often clarity comes from action. The fog clears when you move, not before. That's why executing with intent is a mindset shift. It means reversing the default. Instead of waiting to feel ready, you assume readiness by acting. Instead of chasing motivation, you work from structure. Instead of hoping for more time, you treat what you have as enough and use it fully.